The descent before dawn, a spiritual journey through the lowest point. In the dive from the material to the spiritual, we face a negative buoyancy of the spirit. Just as a swimmer uses their weight to pierce the surface, we must use the gravity of our experience to endure the years of isolation that follow. During this phase, the ego is dismantled so the heart can eventually open. It is a high stakes transition, more difficult than any physical depth, and one where the unprepared risk losing their place in both realms. Across spiritual traditions, a striking pattern appears. Before awakening, a person is often taken to their lowest point, a collapse of identity, certainty, and inner stability. Hindu scriptures describe this not as failure but as a necessary purification before higher consciousness can emerge. Scriptural foundations of the descent. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna experiences overwhelming despair and confusion on the battlefield, 1.2830. This moment of collapse, known as Vishuddha Yoga, becomes the doorway through which Krishna reveals the highest wisdom. The Chandogya Upanishad, 6.8.7, teaches that the dissolution of false identifications is essential for realizing the true self, Atman. Sankhya philosophy describes the soul's movement through tamas, darkness, rajas, struggle, and sattva, clarity, as the natural progression toward enlightenment, Sankhya Karika 14-16. Why the lowest point appears before awakening. The descent happens because certain inner structures must break before truth can enter. Ego exhaustion, the identity built on control or achievement stops working. Shadow surfacing, unprocessed fears and emotions rise to be released. Loss of false stability, attachments that once felt secure begin to dissolve. What awakens after the collapse? Once the old identity dissolves, the seeker becomes open to a higher state. Clarity replaces confusion. Inner strength replaces dependence. Compassion replaces judgment. Purpose replaces aimlessness. In Upanishadic terms, consciousness shifts from the body-mind identity to the wisdom-bliss identity. Why the journey feels like down first, then up. The descent is not punishment, it is preparation. The fall breaks the shell. The rise reveals the seed. Just as a seed must split before it sprouts, a star collapses before shining brighter, and a wave dips before rising again. The lowest point is not the opposite of awakening, it is the doorway to it. Why awakening happens? Scriptural explanation. 1. Awakening happens when the ego collapses. Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita 2.52. 2. Awakening happens when the false self dissolves. Upanishads. The Upanishads describe awakening as the breaking of inner knots. When the knots of the heart are broken, the mortal becomes immortal. Mundaka Upanishad 2.2.8. This dissolution often feels like suffering, confusion, or loss. 3. Awakening happens when the gunas evolve. Sankhya. Consciousness awakens when tamas is exhausted, rajas burns intensely, and sattva finally rises. This transition is turbulent, not peaceful. 4. Awakening happens through tapas, inner heat. Tapas burns impurities and prepares the seeker for higher consciousness. How universal energy selects people. 1. Through purva sanskara, past life impressions. The Gita states, one who has practiced in previous lives is carried forward by that practice. Bhagavad Gita 6.44. Awakening is the continuation of past spiritual effort. 2. Through inner readiness and soul maturity. The universe does not choose randomly, it responds to ripeness, when ego, attachments, and resistance weaken. 3. Through divine grace, kripa. The Upanishads say, he is realized by him whom he chooses. Katha Upanishad 1.2.23. Grace is not favoritism, it is the natural response when the seeker becomes open. 4. Through the soul's ability to withstand the force, awakening is a surge of spiritual voltage. Only a prepared inner structure can hold it.
Awakening as a force of transformation. Awakening is not gentle. It is a powerful energetic event. Like Newton's third law, every force of ascent requires an equal force of dissolution. The Gita shows Arjuna's ego collapsing before divine wisdom enters. The Upanishads teach that the false self must dissolve before the true self is realized. Sankhya explains that the soul must burn through tamas and rajas before reaching sattva. Tapas purifies the seeker through intense transformation. If the inner force is insufficient, the seeker may fall back into old patterns. If the force is overwhelming and unresolved, it can strain the body and mind. This is why spiritual traditions emphasize grounding, guidance, and balance. Closing insight. Awakening is not random. It is not favoritism. It is ripeness. The moment when ego collapses, sanskaras ripen, grace flows, and the soul becomes capable of holding higher consciousness.